Educators are embracing flipped learning in elementary and secondary schools across all disciplines, shifting direct instruction from the group learning space to the individual learning space. The flipped classroom is very different from what most parents have experienced in school, so they may not understand the purpose, reasoning, or need behind the changes required to implement flipped learning. That's why it's critical to inform parents in advance of those changes and help them understand how to appropriately support student success in the flipped model. In today's online event with two teachers who have successfully implemented a flipped learning environment, you will learn how to transition a transitional classroom into a flipped learning environment, engage and inform parents about flipped classrooms, and work collaboratively with parents to support students in a flipped model. Our guest speakers today are Katie Lanier and Crystal Kirch. Katie Lanier is a teacher at Allen High School in Texas. Her specialties are flipped classroom support and physics, scientific research, and design. Katie has been teaching for 11 years, and she's taught elementary science and math, high school physics, and applied physics. Currently, she teaches high school physics and scientific research and design. Since physics is required for all students in Texas, her challenge has been to make physics accessible and enjoyable for students with varied interests and abilities. This is the second year she is using the flipped approach for her physics class, and her success has led to opportunities to support other colleagues as they flip their classrooms. Crystal Kirch is a mathematics teacher at Segerstrom Fundamental High School in California. Crystal continually strives to find ways to make her classroom more enjoyable, engaging, and effective for her students. She has been using the flipped approach for 2 years in both her Algebra 1 and pre-calculus classes. Crystal currently serves as the Math Department co-chair and was voted 2012 Teacher of the Year at her school site. She maintains a teaching reflective blog at flippingwithkirch.blogspot.com, where she shares her experiences in flipped learning. So without further delay, welcome Katie and Crystal. The mic is all yours.
Thank you so much, Deborah, and we're so privileged to be here with all of you today. My name is Crystal Kirch, and I just want to start off a little bit by telling you why I got into flipped learning and kind of why I saw it to be beneficial. So one of the biggest problems that I found with my students, both at the lower levels and the higher levels, is that I wasn't necessarily making the best use of the face-to-face time I had with my students. I was doing a lot of the talking, I was doing a lot of the teaching, and my students didn't necessarily have a lot of time to process and to ask questions simply because we were pressed for time. And secondly, I also noticed that I had a wide variety of learners in every period. I had the high students, the middle students, the low students, and I didn't feel like I was effectively reaching all levels of students in the way that I was teaching traditionally. So I decided to head to a flipped learning model, and I found this to be, over the last 2 years, really a solution to the two problems that I have. My definition of flipped learning, which is taken from several other amazing people out there, Ramsey Musalem, John Bergman, is this: utilizing technology to transition all direct instruction from the group learning space to the individual learning space, where students can learn on their own time, at their own pace, and thus can actively participate in higher order thinking activities in a supportive and collaborative group environment. And that definition of flipped learning really helps me to solve the problems that I was facing. Now, where the flipped model in my personal class of 2 math classes has grown is it's really grown from something not just being about the video. It's not just videos being instructional tools, but it's really about the face-to-face time and the class time that I have with my students. Instead of class time being centered on me, it's now centered on the students. Instead of it being focused on those low-level blooms, it's now focused on those higher-order thinking skills of applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And it's really an active learning environment, which is automatically more engaging for the students. I've seen students being held more responsible for their learning and students being challenged appropriately at their levels. So no matter what level they come in at, they can feel successful. And those are all things I think all teachers really want for our students. The biggest area of success that I've seen over the last 2 years is just in a deeper conceptual understanding. I feel like my students can actually understand and explain the why behind the math and see the connections between the different concepts. they're able to communicate a lot more effectively and actually using, math vocabulary and, again, making connections not only in math but to other content areas. And as Deborah said in the introduction, just an effective, engaging, and enjoyable environment. So I have loved flipping my classrooms for the last 2 years. It's just been an amazing experience that has really led to a better environment for my students.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I guess I started flipping my classroom about, this is the second year. And the reason I did that was because we found that when we spend all of our class time lecturing and then turn around and have kids try to start a lab and then send them home to finish the lab and perhaps do some homework, we were very unsuccessful in actually teaching physics and helping the kids out. And so we needed a way to bring all of the harder work back into the classroom so they could get the help they needed and feel successful, and then take some of the other non-interactive out of the classroom, the stuff that they could do more easily, which would be copying things down. And so when we did that, the classroom turned into a more student-centered classroom like Crystal's, and much more student-paced. We had really one day we had kind of one of those aha moments where we looked around the room and realized that we had actually naturally differentiated our classroom all by itself, just because the kids were working at their own pace. The ones that needed extra help were getting extra help. The ones that would have been bored sitting around waiting were moving on ahead and doing the things that they needed to do. And so the big successes that we've experienced in the last year is just when the kids had physics 2 years ago, they were very, very frustrated because they needed extra help with algebra and they didn't understand what we were asking them to do, and they couldn't go home and do the homework. And so now it's a much better atmosphere. The kids are willing to try things that they would never have done before. They can feel successful. We're actually doing physics instead of talking about it and copying it down on paper. And just the overall frustration is less. There's much more fun, and the extra added bonus of our scores for benchmarks have gone up, which was kind of nice and gives us some good data.
As Katie and I were talking about our 2 different flipped classrooms in 2 different states and 2 different subject areas, we really came to an agreement on kind of what we've learned over the last 2 years with flipped learning, and that's partially what we hope to share with you today. I think the biggest lesson that we've learned is that communication is absolutely key, especially communicating why you're making the change. And this communication has to happen, again, with parents and students and administrators and counselors and everyone that's involved. The second big lesson is transitioning students and parents is kind of hard, but also very important. It's hard for us as adults to deal with change. How hard do you think it is for our teenage kids that are just going through crazy stuff in their life? There needs to be transition, and also with that, training of students in terms of what's expected in this new type of classroom, what exactly am I going to be doing, and just what exactly is going on so they feel comfortable with the change.
And one of the things that I ran across that I was not expecting at all to have to deal with, because I'm working harder, I'm talking to every kid every day, I'm getting to help all these kids, we're all feeling good about what we're doing, is parents telling me to stop what I'm doing and go back to teaching. And parents calling the principals and saying, why is your teacher not teaching anymore? When really, truly, I was teaching more kids in a much better, effective way. And so you've really got to concentrate on how you're going to convey that to the parents and administrators that aren't familiar with it, and to the kids. Point out, hey, if we didn't have this time together, then, you'd be doing this at home on your own. That probably wouldn't be the best thing.
Exactly. And today what we're hoping to convey is what we call a recipe for success for engaging and informing your parents in the flipped learning process. And as we kind of head into that, there's 2 things that we just said we need to keep these in mind. And like I mentioned before, we need to remember that change is difficult for everyone. You love the idea of flipped learning, you love what it does in your classroom, but it is a change. And change is hard, it takes time, it takes communication.
And so you've really got to communicate with everybody, parents, students, administrators, and counselors. And your parents, you almost need to keep this open classroom idea. Invite them into your classroom, reassure them that this is actually going to work for them and it's not just a fad. And the students, important to have a real two-way conversation with them. Be sure to listen to them, figure out where they're having their difficulties, and help them work through it. And do this all throughout the year. Keep reinforcing all of your expectations. And then I was fortunate, my administration was familiar with this model of teaching, so I had a lot of backing when parents would call. But if your administrators aren't very familiar with it, it's really important that they understand what you're doing, because hopefully they'll be fending off phone calls before parents talk to you.
Exactly. So we have 4 kind of levels to our recipe for success. And our big goal here is we want our parents to be our partners in their child's learning. We know that this is a change. We know that this is something new. But if we can get parents on board to support the student at home, and we can support the students in school, and then again we have our administrators and counselors supporting us from the school site, the flipped learning model can be really, really successful. So we have 4 areas that we're going to be going over today in the webinar. The first one is, why do we need to communicate? What do we need to communicate? When should we be communicating with parents, and how exactly can we communicate? And we'll have some great examples of things that we've done over the last 2 years that have helped us to be successful in having our parents be our partners. So the first area is why communicate. And I think some of these are pretty obvious, but it's still important to remember why. So it's not something that we just shove aside. We all want parents to be on our side early, especially when there's a change. We know that our teenagers love to complain about just about anything. And so if they're going home and complaining to their parents and their parents don't really know what's going on, it kind of can lead to some not so good situations. So it's important to communicate, because we really need to get the parents understanding what the change is and understanding what's going on, so they can be on our side and be really supporting us.
And then just like with a traditional classroom, communication can help you diffuse those difficult situations early. You know, the students go home and tell the parents what's going on, and parents are just watching their kids watch videos, which is new for them. And so the parents could see this as the students having to teach themselves. They might be uncomfortable with this technology that they may or may not have used often. Another thing would be, you could end up with students that don't have the same access as other kids, and they're embarrassed. And then just mismatched technology issues. And then there's the new 21st century dog ate my homework of all those different kinds of technology issues. And you want to get to those quickly, reassure parents and administrators that you are taking care of it, and find solutions and move on.
And then lastly, why we need to communicate is, we need to make sure that we understand how the changes are working. I did a lot, especially the first year when I was just starting out with flipped learning. Of communicating with my students and my parents by sending, just having those conversations with the students, by sending home quick little reflective things where they could tell me how it was going and kind of give me suggestions of, this is working well, this isn't working well, and then we were able to tweak things. And what happens when you communicate in that way with your students and parents, that automatically leads to greater buy-in, because they understand that, you're not just making this change and forcing it on them, but you're making this change because you want them to be successful. You want them to see the benefit in their growth as learners. And so you're not making this change to make their lives more miserable. You're making it to make it better. And then what ideas do they have to help make it better? And by communicating with them and understanding how everything is going, that is going to lead again to that buy-in and that whole parents as partners idea.
So this leads us into what to communicate. And you may not have had to do this with the traditional classroom. You talk about, what are the rules for your classroom and how much percentage is homework and things like that. You're going to have to look at what you're going to send home in a whole new way, because you're really changing what parents and students think school is. And so you need to let them know why you're making those changes. What is it going to do for the student? How will it benefit their learning? How will it change the work that comes home? Why would that be better as a video instead of whatever you usually send home? And then how will it help the parents and make it for your classroom? For my personal classroom, my parents were thrilled that they weren't going to have to help their kids with algebra and physics in the evenings. And so that made it more acceptable. So if you can find that hook for them, why it's a benefit, it'll help you out. And then you need to tell them what's going to happen differently. When the video comes home, that's kind of a new thing. That parents don't expect your kids to come home and say, hey, I'm going to watch YouTube for my homework. And when I realized that, I realized, ooh, I really kind of need to tell parents I did mean for their child to watch a video on YouTube. And explain why you're doing the video, what kind of things they'll see in the video, and move on. And be sure to explain that you're hoping the student gets to learn from the video. They're not expected to master everything in the video. Just like when parents sat through a lecture, or when traditional students sit through a lecture, nobody really expects them to master everything you say. You get exposure to the vocabulary and the concepts and examples, and by sending it home in the video, that gives us more time in class to build on those things.
And just going off what Katie just said, I have a lot of parents who do the same thing. They see their kid watching a video and think that 100% learning is supposed to happen at home. But really, these videos are just kind of the warm-up. Here's the basics, so then we can really delve into it in class. And your kid is going to get so much more support and help in class if they just watch this, introduction and basic part of it from the video. A couple of other things that are going to be different is, obviously, we're using a lot more technology in the flipped classroom, and a concern of all parents is, well, what if we don't have tech access at home? How is my child going to succeed? And one of the most important things that I've done is, at the beginning of the year, I send home a letter kind of explaining the change. I also send home a little video, and we'll talk about and give you examples of both of those. But at the end of the letter, I send home just a simple survey, so I can figure out what the different tech access is across the board. And you can do this on paper. You can do this online. I obviously like it on paper because the parents that don't have internet at home can't submit it online. But this gives me a good idea of, are my kids going to have any issues with technology? And then how can I support them? A couple different ways that I support my students, which I'm sure that you've heard, is, again, we can give them the videos on flash drive, on DVDs. We can open up the classroom early if we have technology in the classroom for them to use. So there's lots of different options for them, but it is important to make sure that parents feel comfortable knowing that their child is still going to have equitable access to the curriculum, even if they do not necessarily have the same technology access that other people do at home. The second thing, the last thing under what can I expect to be different is, again, what will the flipped classroom look like? Parents went to school, quite a long time ago when they were used to getting lectured at the whole time. And the flipped classroom does not look like what they are used to. And so they need to know, what is it going to look like, and be specific to your class. So don't just, take what someone else said on the internet and say, this is what the flipped classroom is going to look like. What is it going to look like in your classroom? What is it going to look like for your students? What specifically are your students going to be doing? What specifically are they expected to be doing at home? List that out so parents are aware. They're watching a video. Should they be taking notes? Should they be, submitting anything else? What specifically are the students going to be doing in class? And then also, what is the teacher going to be doing during class time? Because like Katie said, some parents are going to think, oh, the teacher's doing nothing. Well, my parents need to know I never sit down in my flipped classroom. I literally am on my feet the whole time walking around, and these are some live pictures from both Katie and I's classroom that you see. We're constantly moving around, working with kids, helping kids out, working on projects, and the teacher's very active. So parents need to see this, and I mean, if you can have pictures or even a short video clip of what's going on in your classroom after you've done it for a little bit, and have parents see that, that's going to be really important. And let parents come in and see if they want to. Have an open door. Say, hey, you want to see what's going on in the flipped classroom? You are welcome to come in and see what is going on. So those are the three some important things for what to communicate. And then there's one last one as well.
Right, and so the last one would be, how is this better than traditional? And so one of the things that, I mean, we're making this change for a reason, and it's probably not because you really want to work a whole lot harder or you want to redesign everything that you've been doing forever. It could be because you want to try something new and that'll really work and make your classroom a wonderful place, and that's, you need to convey that to the parents. And so I have this graphic that I show. On the top one is what class used to look like, and so the kids would come in and we'd lecture for quite a while, guided practice, we'd start a lab, and then I'd send them home and they'd have a pile of homework. And I left the arrow on there for a reason, because it seemed like for some kids homework would take 20 minutes and for some it was an infinite process. And so I don't know how to plan around my physics homework if that's what's going on. And then the bottom one is the flipped classroom, the change. And so they have a finite amount of time that they prepare for class. And then there's a little warm-up, and we have discussion time, which is different than lecture time, and time for practice, and then a whole lot of time to work on activities and applications and get some good work done. And so you want to tailor something for your particular class that tells them why you're doing this, where are the kids going to benefit, and then explain that, you know, hey, your job at home, thank you for being my partner in this, is to make sure that your child is actually actively watching the video and not Facebooking and doing other things, taking notes, and then, you know, showing up to class with some great questions to discuss.
I think just the fact of the parents not having to sit down and do the math or physics or whatever subject with the student is already how is this better than traditional. The parents, I think, have a easier time, per se, of supporting their students at home because they actually can support them in what the kids are doing and making sure that, you know, they're watching the video, taking notes, etc. We have some great quotes from our students that we wanted to share with you in terms of why the flipped classroom is better than traditional. And this might give you some ideas of what exactly to communicate to your parents of some positive things. So the first one is from one of my 11th grade math analysis, which is pre-calculus students. She says this: the minute I step into the classroom, I always feel this happy aura. A flipped classroom isn't your typical watch the teacher falling asleep while taking notes classroom. It's much more active and student-friendly. Students are given the liberty to discuss and interact with their peers' problems with last night's homework, or perhaps a problem they might have with a certain concept. Automatically, I think that is better than traditional. And then from one of my 9th grade Algebra 1 students, it's more effective than a non-flipped classroom because you stay on task instead of dozing off when the teacher is talking for 40 minutes in front of a classroom full of kids. Those two quotes just kind of make me smile and remind me, why is the flipped classroom better than traditional? And I should probably be communicating these things, these quotes from the students to my parents.
Yeah, and we did a survey mid-year last year just to see what kids were thinking, and pretty much 75% or so positive feedback, which was great. And so these are some of their quotes, and the ones that I particularly like was that they don't have to listen to long speeches. Mm-hmm. And so that was great. And then, you know, make my Spanish teacher do this. And they're enjoying physics class, which didn't happen very often in a regular level physics. The kids that love physics are taking pre-AP and honors and AP classes, not forced to take regular. And so it's kind of a whole shift, and it shows up in what the kids do and say about the class.
So we've got the why to communicate, and I think we all know that it's important to communicate, and kind of what exactly you do need to make sure is clearly coming across. So our next one is, when should we be communicating? And there's 3 key times that you really need to communicate with your parents, and again, with the ultimate goal of, we want to make parents our partners. We don't want this something that parents hear about at the beginning, have no idea what's going on through the year, and then their kid gets a grade on a report card. We really want them to be working together with us. So the first time to communicate is at the beginning of the year, just like you communicate with all of your parents, no matter what type of classroom you have. Like I mentioned before, I sent home a letter to my parents that just kind of explains what exactly is going on. I also made a video, I think it's 4 minutes long, where it's me on the screen kind of talking to them about what exactly is going to be different this year, because the parents most likely won't meet me until about 5 weeks into the school year when we have back to school night. And I want them to know who I am and what's going on in a personal manner right at the beginning. And we will provide resources like this for you to have some samples to the letters we've sent home, to the videos we've sent home.
And after you finish up with your beginning of the year where you pick your way to convey your information to the parents, you still need to communicate things throughout the year. If this is your first year of flipping, things will change. You will make adjustments, you'll make improvements, you'll decide some stuff didn't work. And so you need to be sure to communicate those changes if they affect the student or the parent, or how things are working in your classroom. When you have great successes, communicate those. And there are a lot of ways to do that. You can do it with a weekly newsletter. You can do something, if you have the technology through your school, some email blasts, hey, this is going on and we're having a great time with it. Obviously, just like a traditional classroom, you do the struggling student update where you're letting parents know, hey, your kid needs some extra help. And then if somebody just makes this big change, like, hey, I watch the videos now and it makes sense, tell the parents, hey, your student's doing what they need to do and they're really successful now. Please notice this change. And always include a reminder of what's expected of the kids, that they're expected to watch and take notes, or make a summary, or whatever it is you want them to do for your class, and acknowledge that it's being done.
And in addition to the informal throughout the year, it is important to do some sort of formal communication with the parents. But both Katie and I agree that this should not happen the first month of school. If you send home a formal feedback survey the first month of school, a lot of parents are still not exactly knowing what's going on. And so you might want to wait until they've actually kind of experienced it and understand the change a little bit more. So what we suggest is that you do a formal follow-up via some sort of survey at the middle of the year to kind of get some feedback, and then also at the end of the year so you can be thinking about things for the next year. This is a sample parent survey that I sent out at the end of the year last year, and it's just a simple Google form, and it asks the parents some questions, and we'll have some results of this we're going to show you at the end of the webinar, but it just kind of gives you some good feedback from the parents. You don't have to send it home online. You can obviously send home a paper copy as well, depending on your tech access at home, but this is some sort of formal evaluation where I can actually get some statistics, some data to kind of see how are my parents feeling across the board, where are some areas that I could improve on in helping their students and in communicating with the parents. Do they feel like I am communicating enough with the whole throughout the year communication, or do they feel like they would like just some more updates and more information and more understanding of what exactly is going on?
Okay, so we've done the why, the what, the when, and we come to how. And the first one would be the mode of communication. And this is going to vary from school to school depending on what you have available to you. And use what you already know. I mean, if you have systems that send out mass emails, send out a really great mass email at the beginning of the year. Use the phone calls, although if you have a whole lot of students, that's a little bit overwhelming. Parent night, I know Crystal mentioned hers happens like 5 weeks into the year. Mine happens about 2 weeks into the year, so that's a great time to say, hey, this is what we're doing. We're really excited about it. I put a video up on my website and let the parents know that it's there, and it's a real short one so that they can see what goes on in a flipped classroom and have a better feel for it. And then there's always those conferences. You can always converse with the parents that are not understanding what's going on. Invite them to watch a video with their kid, watch a video with you, see what's going on, come into the classroom. All of those things are great ways to communicate.
And one thing with that is it's important to have multiple modes of communication, because different parents will just appreciate different modes than other parents. So some parents really like to just kind of text me questions back and forth, whereas others want those formal conferences. So be flexible and try a bunch of different modes, because with different parents you'll be able to reach them. And again, our ultimate goal is having them be our partners, so we want to really connect with them. The second tip that we have in terms of how to communicate is in considering your style. It's really, really important that communication with parents in terms of flipped learning is always done in a very personal nature, meaning when you communicate with them, it should be about your class specifically, and it should be created by you. So you can see a screenshot of the little video that I send home at the beginning of the year that I mentioned, and it has my face on it. I created it. It has stuff about my classroom, and so the parents just aren't watching some general video online about what is the flipped classroom. It's actually made and created by you. And also with the style, talking about it being a personal conversation, be prepared to have a conversation with your parents. Don't just say, you know, here is what it is, here's the letter, here's the video. Didn't you read the letter? That should answer all your questions. Didn't you watch the video? Oh yeah, that should answer everything. Be prepared to, you know, have a back and forth conversation with them. Explain it personally to them. Explain specifically how their student is going to succeed in the flipped classroom and how it's going to support their personal students. They want to know that we care about their students. So don't just generalize it, and don't just point them back to some website, but actually take the time to have that conversation. And it may seem like it's going to take a lot of time in the beginning of the year, but it will work wonders in building that relationship, that partnership for the entire school year. Because you invest the time at the beginning of the year to communicate with them personally, continually, it's really going to make a difference in how the year goes, because if you have parents on your side, it's going to alleviate a lot of issues that are going to come up. And then lastly, with the style portion of it, make sure that you are somewhat simple and general as well, meaning leave yourself a little bit of room for adjustment as you are communicating what is going on with your parents. Leave yourself room to tweak things, and just make sure that you don't lock yourself in a box when you're telling your parents what's going to go on. Be specific, but yet still leave room for tweaks. And hopefully that makes sense. So those are some tips in terms of style.
Yeah, and you know, going from style to tone, really the idea would be to keep things very, very positive. You want to just presuppose that everything you're planning is going to work great. The kids are going to do what you're asking them to do, and all of these good things are going to happen. Don't go into what you're going to do when the kids don't do what they're going to do. Don't give out consequences, and be sure that you don't point out problems that you're anticipating to happen. You want the parents to believe in this process. You want them to be your partners, to find the good in it and the reason to kind of help their kids through this big change in what they're used to for school. And so if you add great communication to the hard work that you're going to put into this, you're going to end up with some really great results. I had a parent of a kid that was very much a special needs kid that probably should have been in a different class, and I got this from the mom that thanks for doing such an amazing job. I appreciate it as a teacher and a mom. And so that was really kind of special that she had taken the time to send me that.
And I also got some great feedback from parents as well, from the parent of one of my 9th grade Algebra 1 students. You're doing a wonderful job with the students. The flipped classroom is a wonderful concept, and my daughter has benefited so much from your videos. And again, these successful results happen when you communicate effectively with your parents, when you inform them and you just engage them in the process. So again, it's important to consider what do we need to communicate? Why do we need to communicate? How should we communicate? When should we communicate? All of those things are going to help lead to successful results. Another quote from a parent: the flipped classroom is good because we see what our kids learn. They are actually seeing the content at home, and it's awesome for a parent to recognize that they see that as a positive thing. I mentioned earlier that I sent home a formal survey to parents, and just as we're talking about just successful results with parents, I wanted to share just some of the data that I got when I sent home this parent survey. And so many of them are in the positive direction that it's really encouraging that not only was the flipped classroom successful, but the communication and the partnership with the parents was successful. So I asked parents, how do you believe the flipped classroom affected your child's achievement? And you can see how many of them thought that it was a positive effect or a very positive effect. What about your child's enjoyment of math? Same thing, most of the results heading towards the positive direction. Another important question: what effect do you believe the flipped classroom had on your child's confidence in math? And I think that this is an important thing, because when our students are confident, they are generally just a little more engaged, active, and successful. And for parents to see that changing up the learning environment had a really positive effect on their child's confidence, that's just amazing. Another important question that I asked was, what effect do you believe the flipped classroom had on your child's attitude towards math this year? And again, you can see just some great results from what the parents were saying with that one as well. So these results that I'm showing you all came from the formal survey that I sent home at the end of a year of flipped learning, and just seeing that when you make parents your partners and when you communicate with them in all of the methods and the ways that we've talked about today in this webinar, they are able to see just the positive benefits of it. So they may be wary at first. They may not understand what exactly is going on, but when you intentionally communicate with them the why, the what, you do it when you're supposed to, you do it how you're supposed to, you are going to really have them be your partner. So the big question that we have for today that we want you to leave here considering is, how will you make parents your partners and effectively engage and inform them in flipped learning? What changes or things do you need to make, maybe even right now? I mean, I know it's the middle of the year, but it's never too late to start that open communication and start that engagement with your parents and just see how that affects your flipped learning environment, or also just making plans for next year. Starting off a year of flipped learning, making sure that you're engaging and informing parents from the very beginning.
Yeah, and hopefully all this isn't too overwhelming. A lot of this is stuff that good teachers already do. You're just changing it up a little to make sure you're communicating the flipped learning. So you can always think about it like, okay, here are the things that I've already done that fit still and I can still use. And then you have to really kind of look at it and go, okay, flipped learning is different. I need to over-explain and send lots of information out. What do I need to change to do that? And I guess, Crystal, if you don't have anything to add, that's the end of the information we have for you guys.
I think so. Just remember again the why, the what, the how, and the when, and you will be on your path to creating your recipe for success for having parents be our partners.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, Kari.
Go ahead, Deborah.
I was just going to introduce you. So thank you so much, Crystal and Katie. We really appreciate you taking this time to do this. I wanted to personally thank Flipped Learning Network for partnering with SchoolWires to promote this event. And Kari, Arfstrom is FLN's Executive Director, and Kari, I know you wanted to say a few words too.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah. I didn't mean to interrupt. While Crystal and Katie take a sip of water and take a deep breath, that was just a really great webinar, and I got a lot out of it myself. Please do submit your questions to Deborah, and she will be asking them of our panelists in just a couple of minutes. But I do want to just give them a break for a moment. But over there in the chat window, just put in your question, and they will answer them here momentarily. But again, I also want to thank Crystal and Katie for their time today in putting this together, and everyone at SchoolWires. It's been great to work with them in putting this event together. We also have a great announcement to make today, that we have a brand new website that we just launched last night in partnership with SchoolWires. And you can see some screenshots there of the home page, some cute little kids doing an science experiment up there in the corner. This is our home page where you can find out more information about us as a nonprofit organization. And then the other screenshot here just happens to be our resource page. We try to keep it uncluttered and just the information that you might need. So I invite you to check out the new website. We'd love your feedback, and also just for you to poke around and see what information is there. And if you find something, or if you don't find something that you're looking for, obviously let me know, but we will have links to this website when it becomes archived, as well as the tip sheet that will be created as well, that will have 10, 12 tips of engaging and working with your parents in a flipped learning classroom. This is the second event that we have done with SchoolWires. I know Katie and Crystal mentioned administrators earlier in their talk today, and there is a tip sheet that was created from an event we did last October on how administrators can support flipped learning. So Deborah, at some point you might also want to send that out to attendees today. I know it's on your website, and we linked to it from ours as well. But
Sure,
again, thank you SchoolWires for working with us on this website. We're really pleased with it. Next on your screen, if you are interested in knowing more about flipped learning, or maybe you are doing it and you want to get to the mastery level next, I suggest that you check out John Bergman's and Aaron Sam's book. I know Crystal and Katie have used it and refer to it, and I don't get paid, so I'm not giving you a plug or anything, but if you want to know more about flipped learning, here is the book on that particular issue. So feel free to get a paper copy, or for your e-reader, of course, we practice what we preach. Another avenue that we invite you to join is our NING, which is our free online community of practice. It does have a different URL, but you can link to it from our new website. And there are over 11,000 members on our NING, and there are about 55, I believe, groups now. So, as an Algebra 1 math teacher, middle, high school with special education students, you can find groups that, you can go to ask questions, to share your, successes, to seek support, find information. There's also threaded discussions, a place for videos, just to find your community as you are working through this. So please join that as well, so that you can find folks to talk to. On the next slide, we do have other webinars, and you can find this all on the website, so I'm not going to read this through for you, but we do have an 8-part subject-specific series. Crystal did the math one last fall. We do have 2 left. Of course, they're all archived. That's the wonder of webinars, but we have 2 left on April 10th for social studies and history, and on May 8th for elementary grades. Obviously, today's we will be linking that when it's archived, and then we have a 3-part series just with EdWeb. So again, you can just look that up if you are interested in joining. They're all free. We're also, Katie, we're coming to Allen, Texas, and coming down to your neck of the woods in July. So if folks are interested in that, they can sign up for that one-day workshop. We'll be in Rhode Island this fall, as well as in Pennsylvania. Other things that you'll find just for your own edification: podcasts, online chats, open houses. Again, you'll find it all on the website. I won't give you all the details. I think we have 2 slides left, and then I'm going to turn it over for Q&A. So Deborah, I'll be coming back to you in a moment. I really invite everyone who's on the call today to join us in Stillwater for our 6th annual Flipped Conference. It's right near St. Paul, a suburb of St. Paul. We'll have a hands-on workshop where folks like Crystal and Katie will be talking about how they actually make their videos. The conference itself is more very based in pedagogy, so that's the 2-day conference. If you're unable to travel, and I know in today's economy that's a realistic endeavor for many schools, we do have a virtual conference. So you can attend the 3 keynotes, and I think it's 21 sessions, either live or archived, and that's $105. So for the workshop itself, if you attend, you'll get the keynotes, the featured speakers, the sessions, spotlights, and showcases. It's really packed, and so we really invite you to come to Stillwater and join us there. And the final announcement I have on the final slide before turning it back to Crystal and to Katie is we have a new blended learning course that we have launched. Crystal was part of the team who put this together with Pearson. It has 6 to 8 hours of online with self-directed, so we practice again what we preach. So it has 4 sessions online and then a full day of face-to-face training, as well as 2 coaching sessions afterwards. And so we really encourage you, if you have any want any more information about that, again, you know where to find it on the website. But Crystal and I have had the opportunity to go through, and we're at final editing stage. And I have to tell you, Crystal, I'm sure you might want to mention this, but I am blown away by this course and can't wait for people to get their hands on it. So we'll go to the last slide where I think Crystal and Katie's information is, so that you can reach them. And I'm going to turn it back to Deborah. And again, thank you, SchoolWires, for hosting this, and thank you so much for Crystal and Katie for taking time out of your classroom to be with us today. So take it away.
Thank you, Kari. We've got some great questions coming in, so I'll just start at the top here. Do you have a problem if you are the only teacher using the flipped classroom concept? Training students to flip in your class, and then they go to a traditional classroom for the rest of the day.
I think that this is Crystal, and that's a lot is what is happening in my classroom, because I am one of the only teachers on campus flipping, although there are some that are getting more and more intrigued by it. And I mean, it's an adjustment for the kids. We talked about at the beginning about training and transitioning them. But by the middle of the year, I have a lot of kids coming in saying, man, I wish my biology class was flipped. Man, I wish my Spanish class was flipped. So they're seeing the benefits of it. I also had one kid say, you know, coming into your class is such a breath of fresh air, because I actually can sit down and I don't have to sit and listen to someone for an hour, and I can actually communicate with my teacher, communicate with my peers, and again, just they have that personalized learning. So it is a transition at the beginning. So you do really have to work with your students on understanding that, yes, this is different, but by the middle of the year, if you've just done the training and transitioning that you need to, the kids, for the most part, are good with it, even though it's different.
And
great.
This is Katie. I want to tack onto that. If you treat it more like a teaching style than a completely new change when you're talking to the kids about it, I mean, really, you have to train them and you have to explain it to them. But from one perspective, it's not much different than going from speech class, where you're up giving presentations all the time, to PE, which you're running around and playing games and doing sports, to an English class where you sit and read and discuss. Every class has its own character, so if you treat it in that fashion and just, hey, this is something new and different, I know that, but it's also going to be great, and yeah, it's different, you can do it.
Great. How long did it take you to transition your students so that they are really engaged in their independent or group activities?
That's a hard question, because it really is different for every class. So I teach 5 classes, 2 algebra 1s and 3 math analysis. And obviously my older kids, they're also honors level, they do transition faster for the most part, whereas my younger kids take a lot more guidance and scaffolding. And some students are still having a little bit of struggle with the independent learning even at this point in the year. So it really just depends on the students that you have. I mean, don't set up something saying they're going to be fully transitioned in the first month of school and I'm not going to have any issues. No, it's a constant tweaking, communication, and working with the kids throughout the course of the year. That's what I've seen.
Yes, similar here. It's going to be very much class dependent, course dependent, and student dependent. And just like their speed at learning things is different, their speed at embracing this, and there's always the resistant kid that doesn't like to talk in groups, and you have to really pull them along and convince them that it's going to be all right.
Here's a good question. What if you are a camera-shy teacher?
That is a good question because I've been asked that a lot. I like to put my face on the videos. I feel like that's important, but you don't necessarily have to have your face on the videos. So it could just be, you know, your voice annotating a PowerPoint or on the document camera. It does take some practice. I mean, it is awkward talking to yourself at first, I'll be honest, but you kind of get used to it as time goes on, and it's completely your choice if you put yourself in the video or not. And you just kind of adjust and get used to it.
And my face is not on the videos. I do it at the very beginning of the year for the parents. My concession was the quick introduction at the beginning. I will put myself on there, and then I magically disappear, and it's just my voice, the pen writing. I record with a smartboard, but it is my voice, and so it is still me. And I figure if I was writing on the board or under a camera, the kids don't really see my face anyways. They see it when I talk to them. They see it when we have discussions. And so that hasn't changed. So it's not really camera shy. It's just I haven't figured out a way to not be awkward looking trying to deal with the webcam and writing at the same time.
Good pointers. What kind of formative assessments do you use, and how has your grading changed?
That's a broad question. Katie, do you want to take that one first?
I'll give it a shot. I have had to change my grading a great deal because when we first got all this new class time to do a lot of work, I felt like I had to absolutely grade everything and buried myself in grading. And so this is kind of a work in progress, what to grade and what not to grade. I've gone to, when the kids walk in the door, I have them do a warm-up that is a little bit of a stretch from what was in the video lesson. Could they do it on their own? I know what I kind of expect, but when I walk around the room and see how they're doing, I know where I need to focus any kind of examples or who needs extra help. And then, you do the formative assessments. They're going on constantly. When you're interacting with the kids during the class, you know exactly at that minute what they're struggling with, and you can help them right then, which is probably one of the strengths of this method. And then, at the end of the class, we started using basically a ticket out the door, a question of the day. Here's what I thought you should learn today. Did you do what you were supposed to do, and where do you stand? And that gives me kind of what do I need to work on between now and test day.
Yeah. And I would agree, a lot of the formative assessment, I mean, you're constantly talking to the kids through conversation, but I've also noticed a change in terms of my grading. Quizzes used to be the formative assessment in math, right? You give a quiz halfway through the chapter. Now I feel like I'm assessing my students in a lot more creative ways, per se. I have them, making their own problems, creating videos explaining concepts, writing, they all have their own blogs, and so writing blog posts, explaining the concept and getting resources from online to put in their blog posts, and I use those as formative assessments so I can kind of see how they're doing. And so I think it's a lot more personal and then also a lot more varied in terms of the type of assessment that happens.
Great. We have several questions about students not watching the videos, so I'm going to kind of lump them all together here. What do you do when they don't watch the videos and are unprepared for the discussion the next day?
You want me to start that one?
Go for it, Katie, yeah.
Okay, so this is one that everybody's going to have a different opinion on. And I've tried different things. I tried you didn't watch it, you're going to go sit in the back of the room, and you're going to watch the video before you start. And I do teach regular on-level physics to every kid, so the brighter kids can get it right away. They may not even need the video. I have some that don't need it, and that's okay. And I have some that they could watch it for a week and it'd still be kind of foggy. But what I found that did was that put them 20 minutes behind everybody else in the class, had them on their own for labs, things like that, so that didn't work. And so now I've kind of gone to oh, sorry, you didn't watch the video. You still have time to do that if you need to. You can still do it for a late grade. I'd suggest you do that. But if you're having trouble with the work we're doing today, you might stop and go ahead and watch the video, and we'll catch you up later. But that does mean you'll end up with some homework that's, standard homework if you don't get caught up fast. And so kids are kind of self-assessing. Can I do this on my own? Will my friends help me, or are they tired of helping me through this? Or is this really so hard that I need to stop and go ahead and get the notes and go through the video and then catch back up again?
And I'd agree with Katie there. I don't have one blanket policy. I think every kid is different. So, certain kids that didn't watch the video, I kind of know them that right away I might go send them to the computer. I have a couple computers in the classroom to watch it because I know that is what's going to be best for them. Other kids, learning from your classmates in a discussion, some of them can pick it up. I do have some students who choose to never watch the videos, and that's fine. They still complete the work, and they choose to learn in different ways, whether it be online in the textbook or just figuring it out by themselves. And that's fine as long as they learn the material. My videos are there as a resource for them. I just want them learning. So I don't have one policy of you didn't watch the video, this is exactly what happens. It really is on a case-by-case basis. And I do want the students self-evaluating and realizing what exactly they might need, and if using some class time to watch the video needs to be done, that's fine. It's in their individual learning space. It's at their own time, even though it's in the classroom, but they're doing it at their own pace, and so it's still beneficial even then.
Crystal, I know you have a class to get to. Do you have time for one more question?
I do have, one more question will be great.
Okay, wonderful. When did you guys decide to flip your classrooms? What kind of planning or training did you go through before starting this change?
Last year I flipped in the middle of the year because I just knew I wanted something different. I think I started in October, about 2 months into the school year. And the only training that I had is just connecting with some people online and reading some different articles and just kind of hearing about this new way of teaching and learning. So when I jumped in, I definitely jumped in a little bit blind, but learned a lot as time went on, and collaborating with other teachers around the world that were flipping really, really helped with that. And so in terms of when during the school year, I did it in the middle. I would suggest to people that it's easier to start at the beginning of the year. The transition is a little bit easier, but I just knew that I had to make a change. So I don't remember the second half of the question, but that's when I jumped in.
You got it. Katie?
Well, we had a AP chemistry teacher at our high school that had done the research and decided to flip her AP chemistry class. And we worked together on some other projects, and I watched the process for half a year and thought, man, this would work. This would solve a lot of the problems we were having in physics with kids having not enough time to get the help they need. They're not being able to do the problems that we assign them. Yeah, this is going to work. And so I watched her for a semester, and then she showed the data from, I think it was the Detroit school, that had the failure rates just drop completely with algebra kids. And I thought, okay, well, if that can happen in an inner city Detroit school with algebra kids, I can do that. So the Thursday before school started, I decided to flip my class. And so the Monday on the first day of school, I kind of told my partner in crime that I work with that we're flipping our class and we're doing it now. So the training was just observational. and more of a jump in and do it kind of event.
That's great.
Katie, this is Kari. That's a great story.
Well, it is, when I think about it, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm telling people this. It's, you know, but I love it. Wouldn't go back. You know, I might change things that I did at the beginning. You know, a little bit more planning, but yeah, I wouldn't go back.
And for people who want to find the video that Katie is referring to, if you go to the website and look under resources and under videos and look for Greg Green, and you will find it.
Perfect. Thank you, Kari. Well, I know Crystal needs to get to her next class, and there are still quite a few questions left. So what Katie, Crystal, and I will do is come together and answer these and put a Q&A document together. So we'll make sure and answer all your questions, and we'll post that out with the recording on the website. So again, thank you, Crystal and Katie, for your time putting this together. You were fantastic. Thank you, Kari, for joining with School Wires on this. And thank you, everyone, for attending. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye-bye.